Hi. Oh, hello and welcome to Calming 5 Common IDDSI Fears, Solutions for Sustainable Implementation. So today, in honor of Dysphagia Awareness Month, we're coming up on the end of it in June today. We hope to shed light on some of your biggest IDDSI worries, as well as provide some tools that'll help you in your own projects. So I'm Jenna from Meal Suite, and today I'm joined by Mary and Alexa. Alexa is the manager of training and culinary support at Rubicon Foods, and Mary is a healthcare consultant dietitian specializing in IDDSI implementation. So we're going to start, welcome ladies, with you telling us a little bit about yourselves and your experience in the industry. So I'll start with you, Mary.
Okay, thank you. Well, very excited to be here today. Yes, I'm a dietitian. I work mostly in nursing homes, post-acute care settings, and all of my career in life, I've always been very interested in texture modified foods and how we can create them better. So lately, I've been involved with IDDSI implementation. I learned it through my job writing for the nutrition care manual, writing the diet manual part. And then now, little by little, wherever anybody is at, I enjoy helping them get further along with getting the food better and getting going with IDDSI implementation. I'm also on the volunteer USIRG, which is the United States task force, and that's all in the references at the end that you'll be sharing.
Hi, everyone. I'm the corporate chef at Rubicon Foods. I've been with Rubicon for a little over 8 years now. At Rubicon, we have a puree line. So it's all dry mix convenience products. You just add water and heat. So I work a lot with our customers. We have some simple, easy to learn processes that we teach our customers to successfully roll out their puree shaping program. The goal being safety, increased resident satisfaction, and of course, dignity. So my role is culinary and training support for those rollouts. And I work closely with the kitchens on their A to Z preparation. So how to fully integrate our products into their current operational model.
Awesome. So we're so happy to have you both here today. And welcome everybody who's joining. We wanted to kick it off with a quick poll just to get an idea of where you're at in your own IDDSI implementation project. So are you just getting started or are you well into it? Our team on the back end is going to put a poll up with a QR code. If you can get your phone out and you can scan it and you can cast your vote, and we'll see the live results right here. So we'll give you 1 minute to just let us know where you're at and get a feel for where everybody is. Is anybody having difficulty with their phone, or is it working okay? Oh, there we go.
Oh, haven't started yet.
There they are.
Okay, there we go. Kind of cool. Ooh.
Cool.
Wow, lots of interesting trends here.
Yeah.
That's super.
Okay, so we definitely have a bit of a mix of everything.
That's great.
Okay. Thank you so much for voting. We hope no matter where you are in your implementation journey that this content will be of great value to you. So Mary and Alexa have so much great content to share. And we have a pre-recorded segment for the next about 40 minutes, and we're going to save 15 minutes at the end for a live Q&A and a little bit more content and resources. So I'm going to share my screen and get started with that. Okay, so let's get into it. So we're going to start with you, Mary. So one thing we've been seeing a lot of is people are wondering, is it required to implement IDDSI? Is it a requirement?
Well, that's a really good question. And I like the way you said requirement, because a lot of people say, oh, do we have to do it? Is it mandatory? But requirement is a key answer for United States. And that's a yes, because it's written in our CMS guidelines, our regulations, and basically the focus is standard of practice. So our requirements, the CMS guidelines and CMS regs haven't changed. In there has always been, it's your standard, follow your standard of practice, follow best practice to give the best care. And basically both the Speech Language Pathologists Association, or ASHA, as well as the Academy of Dietetics and Nutrition, or AND, they have accepted IDDSI as the only evidence-based best practice to follow. So that's kind of like the key to your answer. And, people are at different stages. So granted, and some people still perhaps have not really embraced IDDSI, but eventually it will come out. And really the second follow-up question always is, well, do surveyors know about IDDSI? And yes, they know about it. They've all been educated. Will it come up at my survey? Well, do we have to worry about it? Well, that depends upon how well everything else is going. It may not come up. It may come up. But what it does do, it provides you an avenue to get something done within your facility that's a quality initiative that shows you're heading in the right direction. It was what I always called, when I did my pre-survey audits, a low-hanging fruit. That means it's an easy thing to get going on. You got to kind of do it anyways. So, and don't forget to throw it in your QAPI program or your quality assurance program, because having it in there as a project, as IDDSI as a project that you're working on, will help you if it does come up during survey as an issue. One last thing, there is a thing called what we all call about transitions of care or so. So when you have somebody in your facility or coming to your facility or leaving your facility for somewhere else like home or assisted living, well, those facilities may be following IDDSI. So it kind of puts you in a limited situation if you don't understand what IDDSI is all about. You may not have it implemented or perfected in any way, but you're learning about it, you understand, and you can talk the talk of IDDSI with other clinicians in other settings.
That's a great answer. And that kind of leads into another fear that we're going to be talking about, which is people worrying that it's too strict. And is there any flexibility? What can be changed and what can't be changed?
Very good question. And this question, actually, the answer to this question has changed over the years. As we've all gotten more comfortable with IDDSI, we've learned a little bit more about the rules of the road, shall we say, right? So first of all, to answer that question, you have to get it in your brain. What is the IDDSI framework compared to a diet order? So the IDDSI framework really organizes all your food textures, your drink thicknesses, with standardized terms, okay, of the definitions, as well as the names, descriptions, definitions, names, okay? It actually decreases confusion as everybody embraces IDDSI. But it also describes patient abilities, what a person can do or cannot in regards to biting, chewing, tongue control, fatigue, and just general strength and risks. Okay, so put those two together, and basically IDDSI helps us, guide us to make a decision on what to serve at each level, right? But it's not a list of allowed and not allowed foods. It's a guide. It's a framework that organizes. Okay, so now IDDSI's not a diet order. So IDDSI's a framework. It's the little cheat sheet, shall you say? But a diet order takes a clinician to evaluate a certain person in a certain facility, what that facility can and cannot do or provide. And it basically, IDDSI provides a structure to have an individualized approach to determine the right diet order. So then that diet order is taken and it's, quote, filled in the kitchen. Diet order comes down. Now we in the kitchen need to fill it. We have to figure out what to serve on that diet order that is safe. That's meeting a regulation right there. Another reason why you really need to embrace and move forward with IDDSI. And then the kitchen has to figure out, what do I serve? That's what we're going to talk about later. Stay tuned for a lot of good information from Alexa. So we have to figure out how to get there. But keep in mind, not all foods created equal, not all finished products are created equal. And look at our resources. Raw materials vary. Okay, we're all foodie people here, I think, listening, most of us. Cooking methods might change, holding times, culinary skills can vary place to place. So really, it depends upon how knowledgeable your staff is and how much you can grow them to see where you can get. What can be changed? What cannot be changed? IDDSI framework cannot be changed, but the diet order can be changed and individualized. It's actually expected. IDDSI's encouraging people to make sure they are individualizing their approach to care and the diet order for a person. And they're going to change over the course of time. They may get better with their skills. They may decline in their skills. So we always have to watch for reevaluation, reassessment. Ding, ding, ding. That's another meeting regulation right there, is that we're always trying to individualize and our approach, and we're always trying to meet that person where they are at, and then of course reassess when it's needed. So IDDSI's the structure, and you need clinicians to individualize the order, and you cannot change the framework. So people want to know, is IDDSI too strict? So to answer that question, now that you know all of this that we just talked about, is IDDSI too strict, or is the diet order too restrictive? Which is the concern? Or is IDDSI shining light to an area of our practice that really hasn't gotten much attention? For the first time in my history, my long history as a dietitian, everybody wants to know what's in those diet spreadsheets now. And they're not really looking at the therapeutic part too much. Sometimes they never really did too much. But now they want to know what's on there, what can they give or not give for each texture modified diet. So really the focus is the kitchen. So grab that spotlight. Everybody cares about what you're doing now. That's awesome, right? So is it because IDDSI's asking us to consider maybe some additional items, some additional food levels that might help individualize a diet order? Don't forget, IDDSI's not too strict. IDDSI's based on a resident's abilities. The only reason somebody would be on a diet order is because their abilities, they can't tolerate other food. So what is the restrictive part or the strict part? It may be that our ability to produce safe foods and serve at multiple different levels is not quite up to where it needs to be. Again, stay tuned for Alexa. She's got some great solutions, as we want to talk about solutions here, right? Not just worries and fears, but solutions.
Awesome. And speaking of resources, we're excited to share some in the chat at the end. So stay tuned for that.
Right.
And to continue on to that, Mary, I think one of the most intimidating parts, of course, of IDDSI is getting started. So what would be your advice for getting over that fear and also like getting your team on board with you, because you don't want to be alone in the journey?
And those are questions that come up all the time. It is hard. It is not easy. So you are right. It's not an easy project. One of the first things I always say is, you know what, just relax and set your tone. It's going to take a while. So sit back, try to work at it little by little as often as you can, but don't put the pressure on that it's got to be done by next Sunday. It's not going to happen. And it's not going to happen effectively. And the other thing you can do is my favorite thing in the whole wide world, and that is test food. Create food and test it. Create and test it, because you are never too early to start there. If your facility has not even begun to discuss it or is barely getting off the ground, you will learn so much about IDDSI just by playing in the kitchen. And before, when IDDSI wasn't even barely starting to be implemented, I worked with the kitchen for a couple of years, just happened to be my kitchen I was in. I used their testing guidelines. I used what I was starting to learn. They had no idea what the IDDSI was, but we slowly but surely improved our texture modified diets. Of course, I put it in our coffee program. That was getting popular back then. So we automatically always had awesome coffee projects. Again, they were absolutely clueless about IDDSI until the very end. But in the meantime, there was no pressure. And I think that's what's important, is be careful of that. There's too much pressure. So test, and as soon as you finish your testing and you see something that might work, put it into action. Never wait. You figured out how to make a little bit better product, do it and see if you can apply that to other products that you're making. You might stumble upon other things that you want to purchase and try out. Give it a go. Usually you end up improving your quality of the house product coming out of your kitchen. So how cool is that? Now, the double bonus is certainly that all your texture modified foods will become better slowly but surely. And you'll also have some QA people up on the floor, and that would be your direct staff trying to have people help people who are dependent, or trying to have people that need to eat on their own but aren't too happy. They should be able to give you feedback that something's happening better and people are eating more. The second thing to do is plan. Yes, we have to do our homework and make a plan, but plan 6 to 12 months. Please, again, it's not something that you can rush. And figure out how you can get your IDDSI topic into established routine meetings. So that might be, your quality assurance meeting. It might be your weekly meeting you have. It might be a dining committee meeting. Whatever you can do on a day-to-day basis, or even occasionally once a week, put it into some kind of routine program, that's a meeting that's already established. And figure out who's out there. Survey all your staff. Who's out there that might be able to help. And I love a physical binder. And people laugh at me. But when I go in to help somebody and they're like, yeah, I said, set it up electronically if that's what you want. Go ahead, get your folders going. Oh my gosh, I don't think it takes a few weeks before they get a cute little physical binder and start putting things together, because they want to see what's out there to help them free on IDDSI website. And they love to have it. Oh, I see. We're going to print this off, be ready to make copies to educate, be ready to make copies to post. Okay. And you do want to do some initial simple education and in-service. That's going to increase the awareness. You might have to get into more nitty-gritty for people, but there's these 101s and 201s, really great educational videos that are on the USIRG, all explained in that handy dandy resource that we'd be putting in the chat box for everybody to follow. Number 3, you got to evaluate where you are and where you're going to go. How is everything coming out now compared to IDDSI testing? And what do you need to change to get them to meet IDDSI testing? What are the names and what do you actually serve? That's one of the main things IDDSI is trying to solve, is there's like 40, 50, 60, 70 different types of diet names describing a texture modified diet. It is so confusing. And I'm only one dietitian going to multiple locations over the course of many years. I can't imagine what other people have seen. And what's served on those diets can vary from one facility to the other. So you have to get your definitions. What are you doing now? What are you serving now? And where you need to go. So number 3 is that evaluation stage. You will be surprised as you evaluate and as you check your food. Most of the time, people are so shocked at how many types of foods are actually passing IDDSI testing already. So they have a really good basis to start from. And so it's not as overwhelming as they think, and they get real excited. I've seen it. They're shocked sometimes, which is so much fun. I've tried to capture in photos, not always able to do that. One of the fourth thing is one of the funny things is like, well, who can be involved? Who can do it? Hello, anybody and everybody can be involved in IDDSI. And one of these days, they're going to get involved no matter what. We'll usually find a way. And especially like our activity staff in my settings in long-term care, they are so key to making sure people are eating and drinking the right snacks and fluids between meals. And often, sometimes they help set up the dining areas. So it's really, really key to make sure everybody's involved. And really, some examples are, you really do need one or two key people to kind of head the program and get it going. And that is often, I've seen a rehab director or a speech language pathologist want to be the key. The funnest I've ever experienced is the dietitian myself with the dietary manager and a speech. We were the three duos. Duos, no, triplets, right? So we were the trios, and we really had a great time, hard time. Sometimes it was difficult. It wasn't easy. That, oh my gosh, it's Wednesday again. We have to meet. But we kept at it, and it was really fun. And sometimes you might be surprised who is the department head that help leads the way. And how can you encourage your team? That was another part of this question that people kept asking. I feel like I'm alone. I'm the only one that wants to do it. Well, usually we have heard from the USIRG and lots of activities I've been at. Sometimes the dietitian will come up and say, I'm the only one who wants to do it. And then 20 minutes later, a speech language pathologist comes up. I'm the only one that wants to do it. So it doesn't matter who wants to do it or who doesn't want to do it. Just try to find your partner in crime and get it going, and really throw it into your QAPI program. Again, QAPI is quality assurance and performance improvement. Many settings have this, if not most of you listening understand what that is, but Google if you're not sure and you'll find out more. But basically, QAPI and IDDSI go hand in hand. They both want a multidisciplinary team approach that is slow and steady and constantly reevaluated to see that it's a sustainable effort. Why make an effort for 6 months or 12 months if it's not sustainable? That means it's going to keep happening, keep being refined. And so when you throw it in your program, that is how people become responsible. QAPI is attended by the administration, management, as well as the medical director. So in one of the places that I helped, it was our way to shine what we were doing on a month-to-month basis to the medical director. How cool is that, right? So that putting it in your program allows the opportunity for you to make your team responsible to follow up and get their work done. And something that's due once a month is doable. So there's lots of opportunities to do this. I think that one last thing is where exactly I've seen it work is literally as easy as a week during the daily stand-up meeting. If there was something going on with an IDDSI project or IDDSI training, it would be everybody be reminded. And then on a weekly basis, there was either a risk, a dining, or food service type of a meeting. And that's where we would work on it. And we'd invite different people to come. And then, of course, your monthly meetings are your QAPI. I hope that helps people get a little bit start on things.
That's great advice. And I've heard this before, like with IDDSI, just get started is such a good piece of advice. And like your team will follow suit if you follow those tips.
Yes. Eventually people hop on the IDDSI train, as we call it. And, you get to be IDDSI friends, and IDDSI friends are forever. And when there's positive energy in the building, people eventually will follow it. Yeah, people tend to go with the negative, but if you kind of just, kind of turn your back to that and don't worry about it and just keep going and trying to find some fun with it, people will eventually, I think, feel great about it.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's great advice. Okay, so that brings us to fear number 4, which is about how can we get our cooks to produce quality food while focusing on these changes and on IDDSI and everything that comes along with that. So Alexa, if you could take this one.
Yeah. So this is a big fear that I'm hearing with our customers. They don't want to backtrack and change the way they're producing their mechanically altered diets. There's a big concern that switching to IDDSI would limit what they could serve their residents. But in terms of quality, you have to look at where you're at now. So are you producing a quality texture modified product that meets the needs for each specific resident? So I've seen this, and I know Mary's seen this, but IDDSI really provides the guidelines for the clinicians to evaluate the best diet order. And that puts your residents at the diet level that they should be at. So you're also able to advance those textures gradually. You don't want to jump from puree to a house texture. You're providing consistent product results at the levels that they should be at. So looking at this from the cook's perspective, how do we take this on at the cook's level? Well, speaking from my experience, there's really 3 things that I've worked on with our customers that have made the biggest impact in executing this. So one would be bulk prepping in advance. So planning, taking the time up front, which leads to a more efficient and consistent product. Number 2 would be to use convenience products for your harder to puree items. So this reduces labor, and again, it ensures that you're getting that consistent product result. So 3 would also be to start simple for enhancing your plate presentations. So you want to learn and execute a few simple shaping techniques that will make the biggest difference to the plate. So I'm going to dive into those 3 things a bit more. So for bulk prepping in advance, truly what I've seen is a successful texture modified program is planned out and done in advance. So I have a video here that I'm going to show you. It's on bulk advanced prepping. So Jenna, if you want to.
Ready to go?
Mm-hmm. So basically, you're making up your frequent menu items, such as your puree pasta, your rice, your corn, your puree proteins, such as puree chicken or pork. You're making those up in bulk. Then you're scooping them out, individual servings on a sheet pan, and you're freezing those servings. You can then store those servings in a plastic bag or a Cambro, and then you're pulling those servings that you need for service that day from the freezer, and you're retherming them. So this works great for all of Rubicon products. We have a guide on this, but for other menu items, you might need to test this out just to make sure that there's no loss of quality or color or texture. So you really just want to figure out what items on your menu will work with this system. So vegetables probably shouldn't be done in advance. You could lose quality, losing the color, they could weep out. It's really for certain products, and this simplifies putting your plate together. So you want to look at your menu and just see what items on your menu can you test this process with. So it's great for small numbers of purees or small numbers of minced and moist because you don't need to make up a small portion recipe over and over again right before the meal. You're making it up in bulk and then just pulling what you need for service that day. So one thing you do want to keep in mind with this process is you need to date and label properly. You want to do the first in, first out method. So you need to make sure you're controlling that step in your system. And you also want to be true to the meal. So all textures really should be served the same menu items. So maybe your sauce and your vegetables might be pureed up that day to make your puree plate true to the meal. And then you're pulling your puree chicken from the freezer and your puree pasta from the freezer and you're retherming. So you're planning in advance to simplify certain items on that plate. So the second point would be to use convenience products for your hard to puree items. So at Rubicon, as I mentioned, we have a line of dry mix puree products where you add water and you heat. So hard to puree items are the items that you can get a lot of consistency and texture issues with when you're pureeing that from scratch. So that would be your bread, your rice, your pasta, maybe corn or bacon. Some of those can get gummy or gunky. There's gristle in the bacon. There's skin on the corn that can't be pulled out or pureed together. So at Rubicon, we do have those products. They're convenience products. Dry mixes, you just add water and you're heating. We've modified and worked with our products to get them to pass the IDDSI test. That's at cold, room temp, and hot, but you still want to make sure that you're doing your own IDDSI testing just because there could be variances in your recipe. So my third point for this fear would be to start simple for enhancing your plate presentations. So this fear is about losing quality. You don't want to lose quality. But your safe, consistent IDDSI texture would be your first priority. Now, how can we turn that into a dignified plate presentation that residents would be proud to eat, and then hold that proper texture over time? So I do have a study, Jenna can pull it up. So this study was done, it tested consumption rates for patients who were offered shaped versus non-shaped puree. And the conclusion was that the residents eating the shaped puree consumed an average of 500 calories more per day than the non-shaped. So that is very significant. And you really only need to shape 1 to 2 items for the plate to look presentable. So we're really just trying to get away from those 3 plops and shape just a couple things on the plate. So let's talk about breads. It's served at every meal. It's a really big menu item. Mary's spoken with me that some people just will completely skip out on the breads because they don't know how to do it for purees, but it is an important menu item that you don't want to skip out on. So if a menu item passes the puree IDDSI level 4 testing, then this menu item can be served on higher levels. So minced and moist and soft and bite size, easy chew 7. So shaping the breads would be especially important since a level 6 resident would be pretty cognizant of what foods they're getting. That can affect their consumption rates if they're pretty cognizant and they're getting a plop on a plate. So I have a great video on how to shape your puree bread. So basically, you're just making up the Rubicon puree bread mix and you're spreading this into a sheet pan. And from this one shaping technique, you can get cinnamon rolls, pancakes, toast, sandwiches. You can get pizza or breadsticks, hot dogs. There's just tons of different menu items with your bread that you can get from this one technique, which is awesome. You can bulk prep these sheet pans. Just have somebody who knows how to do this technique, is good at it. When they have a little time in the kitchen, they can make up 3 days worth of servings, wrap them, store them in the cooler, and then all you're doing is pulling at service time the servings that you need for breakfast, lunch, or dinner from that same sheet pan. So right here, we're pulling cinnamon rolls. We have some pancakes here, and we have some toast for breakfast. So out of that one sheet pan, you have those 3 menu items for breakfast. It just makes a huge difference to the plate. So there's your cinnamon rolls. I mean, those look awesome.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, the cinnamon rolls especially, people love those.
And
for here,
I mean, you can create from one thing.
Yeah, it's awesome. From here, I'm just showing from the same sheet pan, you're pulling for your grilled sandwiches, and then we're gonna do a hot dog. So this filling, you're having that separate, so you can do your minced and moist filling, you can do your soft and bite-sized filling, and then your puree filling that goes onto that sandwich.
And Alexa, this is where we want to emphasize, people feel like it's such a challenge to do, but if you can find one solution that works for your level 4 puree, this is why this is a huge improvement for level 6 and 5 from what they've been getting. Yeah. A lot of them have to get just the puree because they can't do quite in between. But look at what one bread can do. It's so versatile. I would think anybody on a level 6 or 5 would be thrilled to get something like this. It's great.
I agree, Mary. So what I've seen is just really bulk prepping in advance is just an easy way to make up those sheet pans and just to have them ready for service. They hold extremely well. And then you can do that when you have downtime in the kitchen. And then, yes, Mary, I mean, the menu items you can get from that, the bread products, I mean, it looks so great. And we've actually had people return them to the kitchen because they don't think it's puree. They think it's regular, pancakes or regular grilled cheese. So that's always really great to hear. And it really lights up the residents' faces. So I will say with that recipe especially, the temperature of your hot water is important, because if you get it too hot, it will turn into finger food. So you want to get it in between 180 to 190. So there's just a couple things with that you just want to make sure that your kitchen staff does right, just to make sure that that safety is there. And then, as I said, you always just want to test with that and make sure that, you know, it's not the finger food, it's passing the spoon tilt test and the fork pressure test. So I have another video I'm going to show on shaping. This is just line shaping. Basically, you're making things up in advance and you're shaping on the service line, on the serving line. So you're following your recipe instructions for the Rubicon products. That goes in bulk on your serving line. And then instead of a scoop onto the plate, you're doing a scoop into the ricer and pumping that on the plate for a puree spaghetti here, or for your puree rice. So there's spaghetti. We do provide these ricers at no additional cost with purchase of our products, just because we want you to use the same ricer. It has 3 different discs in it that give you a little versatility with your pasta. So this is the puree rice coming out of the ricer. Just one extra step. You can always go back to scooping. If your kitchen is overwhelmed, and if you don't have a lot of time, you can always scoop that. But if there is time, you know, scooping into the ricer or scooping into a mold and flipping onto the plate makes a huge difference.
Wow, that corn looks great.
Those corn molds are provided in each case. And then we also provide these protein molds. We have 4 different shapes: stacked meat, a fish, chicken, a pork chop.
Wow.
And then there's a grilled coloring mix that we provide on that gives it a nice grilled color for your proteins.
Okay, there's a perfect IDDSI testing you're doing. It's coming out great. That's super.
It is, yeah. Just slides right off the spoon.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, you really only need to shape 1 to 2 things on the plate, and it just makes a huge difference. You're just getting away from the 3 plops. And then consumption rates will go up with that, an average of 500 calories a day, which is huge. Satisfaction scores will go up. Basically, it's just, if you have the time in the kitchen, it's just 1 extra step to do. So it just takes a little bit of training beforehand, but makes a huge difference. So that's kind of all.
Makes the cooks feel better.
Yeah, it
makes
does.
the cooks feel better because, you know, they're producing a plate that looks so nice.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
Yeah. And they say, you know, we eat with our eyes first, and that's true for everybody. And I know that's true for me. So that I'm sure that makes such a big difference. That's awesome. Okay, so that takes us to fear number 5, which is all about training. So some people may be wondering, how am I going to get all this training done, and where can I find resources for it? So I'll pass that one on to Mary.
Okay, very good question. And just think about everything we just learned now from Alexa. There's one of your great resources right there, is your manufacturing companies, what they're doing. And along with those videos that you just saw, there's many more. And each one comes with a step-by-step guide. So you'll have something in writing to follow as well. And they do provide good support with implementation. So think about that. There's a great resource, especially what I feel as though you need the most effort in the kitchen from a culinary point of view with training. That is who needs the most energy. So don't forget our cooks in the kitchen. Okay, but overall, establish a lead person in the whole facility. Somebody's got to take charge of the training. Realize that you want to incorporate whatever you can into the routine training that happens in the facility, the onboard training, the annual training. These are opportunities to do some more formal training. And then lastly, realize that the best effort you can do is providing training to people of what they actually do on a day-to-day basis. So if they're in the kitchen and reading the diet spreadsheets, then color code those and make those names and the symbols you're using exactly the same that are on their diet tickets that they're looking at. so that slowly but surely everybody starts learning blue is SB6, soft and bite-sized level 6. And so we become hearing in the kitchen, I need a blue, I need a blue. You know, whatever their lingo is going to do, they have to learn it. Also, just showing some posters or create any kind of chart for the staff to know this is what you used to do. Now, this is what we're doing now. Here's the similarities. Here's some differences. They seem to really respond to that. And certainly something to think about with training. IDDSI's mission is that all use the same words or terminology and the same definitions. That means what's served on each level, give or take, for all cultures, all ages, and all settings. Okay, so that means eventually you will get people as new employees that already know a bit about IDDSI. Eventually, when everybody embraces IDDSI, the training needs will go down a bit, but they will probably shift towards, hey, let's see what else we can do and create. But eventually, and I've seen it already with a recent place I've helped, and one of their new employees already knows all about IDDSI. So they're immediately helping to lead the way to quite a perfection of implementation that I've seen very, very well. So where are these cool resources? Well, we did make a nice, we'll have them in the chat, but also basically you start with IDDSI.org. There's all the links in there. They have really, really a lot of good free resources. One of my favorite that I have to show is the testing card. And on the testing card, yes, there's sponsors, abbreviations, the general framework. And on the back, it's literally how to test everything. So this is a nice, simple tool that's available and free. I think you have to download it and all that fun stuff. So please, and there's also a nice little mini version that really helps. And this is the new funnel. There's also testing for the original syringe testing too, if you're sticking with the syringe testing way to test everything. Now, there's also a lot of free resources at the United States Implementation Task Force site, USIRG, again in there with the nice direct link to each of their type of resources. They are the ones that actually we have developed. I'm one of the members, Alexa is as well, but we developed some 101 and 201s, and those are videos you can use to show people the basics and then get a little bit more complicated for those that need to know a little bit more. They come with competencies, so people have to answer questions. They can save them in their employee file, date it, and there's your documentation of certain training with certain people. They've really been very useful, and stay tuned for the 301. We're now in the process of making 301 mostly focused for the culinary team that, again, we feel as though need the most time and energy. Now, there's also resources at your local professional group that might get together, national group that might get together at conventions, but also in your community. If you work alongside a hospital or you're a hospital working alongside a long-term care facility, wherever you can do to group your efforts, learn from somebody who's already been doing it. Go visit. One of my first fun things I did was I visited many of the hospitals in Boston as I learned what they were doing so that I could see how that could transition into what we need to do more in a post-acute or long-term care setting. Now, a great resource that we don't want you to forget about, and that is you. You listening today is awesome. You going forward and finding out more things is what you need. And you can be the resource in your facility no matter what stage you're at. You need to possibly, what I've done is print out one of the framework documents that really shows everything. And this is my Bible. And in the beginning, I used to print it out for any speech language pathologist I would work with. And they would be delighted, not at first, eventually delighted. Over the years, now they're always delighted, or they already have a copy, or they can speak the language. So now, the last few years or so, I can speak the language that they're speaking. We figure out what people can and can't do, And so you actually are a huge resource waiting to be developed completely. Or maybe you already are, which is super duper. So no matter where you go, your IDDSI information, your IDDSI culinary skills that you're learning, your IDDSI language that you're learning to speak goes with you. I've also used my skills helping out friends and family that have been in a situation where they're not sure what to give their person or their family member, including if they've been at a hospital that perhaps isn't quite there yet. And there's some confusion. So it really follows you wherever you go. So get it developed. And the last thing is, besides our manufacturing companies, that is endless, don't forget to explore the free training videos and resources that are on YouTube. IDDSI has their own YouTube channel. So that's endless as well. And lastly, actually, the time you spent again today here counts as your resource development that you're spending your time and energy. So pass it along. Don't forget to share this record. It's going to be recorded. You can view it at any time. Sit down with your team and look at it again. Pick out the points that are going to help make you move forward with your team. So you now have been part of a really important resource that hopefully will help people implement as they go forward.
Okay, thank you so much, Alexa and Mary, for sharing that great information. And one of the biggest takeaways we want everyone to know in this segment is you're not alone in your IDDSI journey. So there's resources, there's tools, there's people like Alexa and Mary, and there's also technology. So we wanted to share a little clip about how Meal Suite can help you implement IDDSI. By our lead nutrition services, Noelle Slaughter. So I'm going to play that now, and we'll be back for the Q&A at the end. So don't forget to put your questions in the chat, and Alexa and Mary will answer them when we're back.
How food service software can support your IDDSI implementation. We know that you're already juggling so many tasks in your day-to-day operations, so even something as important as implementing IDDSI could seem like a challenging task. What we'll show you very briefly here now is how using technology as part of your IDDSI implementation can benefit your operation in all of these ways. Within Meal Suite, there are IDDSI tags, which are assigned to recipes. The tags contain the IDDSI name, symbol with its associated color, and unique IDDSI ID. In addition, each tag contains a preparation step to align with IDDSI standards for kitchen staff to reference. Throughout Meal Suite, you can filter on key information such as tags, menu, category, and much more. This makes it easy to locate the recipes you need where you need them. Many of these filters are seen throughout the system, including when applying therapeutic substitutions for textures and fluids. Not only can you easily filter, you can choose which columns of data you'd like to view on the listing page. Here is an example of the recipe listing page filtered on My Menu and displaying the tags column. This makes it a breeze to identify which recipes I need to review and adjust the tags. You can even use bulk edit to add tags to the right recipes. Printed recipe reports will also contain your tag information, including the ID, symbol, color, and preparation steps, so that production teams have all their required information to ensure safe preparation and satisfied regulatory requirements. When it comes to production, not only will the recipes at scale include the tag information, but your production reports as well, giving the visibility needed during preparation and service.
Okay, thank you so much, Noelle. And Noelle is actually live in the chat right now if anybody has any questions about the technology. But for now, we'll hop into our Q&A segment. It's not too late. You can still drop your questions in. But we'll start with the one from James. What are some other potential benefits of IDDSI I may be surprised about? I'll pass
Wow. Well, I think the first thing is communication. It's unbelievable how any kind of an objective tool that everybody can look at is going to immediately improve a communication, not only just within the kitchen, but between the kitchen and nursing and patients and residents everywhere. And I've seen this firsthand, how it's actually created a slightly broken team, into a very, very effective team because they have a mutual agreed upon process that works wherever the patient or resident is. I have a feeling Alexa's seen some really good surprises by helping people with their implementation.
Yeah, I think just what I've seen going through the process with when I've been out in the field is it just kind of makes your organization take a complete audit of the food that you're serving. So you're really putting the focus on it, and there's always improvement that kind of comes from that. So that'll hopefully increase your satisfaction scores, which is a big selling point. And then you can just find out what isn't working well, and you can, work on it and hopefully kind of increase efficiencies in your kitchen and then improve quality, which is what everyone's trying to do.
Right. And that ends up with customer service. I mean, sometimes we struggle with how we're going to improve our customer service or get our ratings up. And I'm telling you, if you can make a better and different choices for people on texture modified diet, you will be improving the quality of your food overall. So pretty exciting opportunities, I'd say.
Awesome. And we can move on to the next question from Carol. Is there another kitchen activity or form that can be combined with routine IDDSI testing?
Well, IDDSI testing, you have the free audit sheets that you can start with, which is a great basis to start with. That's right on IDDSI. And it leads you through how you're going to test each level, what you're looking for. But these type of tests can then easily become a poster or options in the kitchen for them to constantly be viewing. And when you're going to actually do that becomes perhaps when you're going to test your temperature of your food. You might have 2 or 3 things at first that have been a little bit more difficult, and you want to watch those testings. At first, you have to test everything. But towards the end, you might find like, wow, this is really coming out good. You might be testing it there. The other thing is you always want to test 10 minutes in and certainly 30 minutes after you've served the food. So a great combination is to actually be testing the IDDSI food with the IDDSI testing tools during a dining audit. So I created a form that on one side is all the potential things you might be looking for on a dining audit, where you're going up on the floors, you kind of see that everybody's being fed at the same time, provided their food at their same time, provided assistance. And on the back is, somebody have the kitchen send a test tray. And with all the food, you can take your temperatures and you can certainly do your IDDSI quick checks to see if the food is passing IDDSI testing 30 minutes after service.
Awesome. Our next question is from Sherry. Please explain how to individualize exceptions to IDDSI framework for things such as bread, ice cream, mixed consistencies, salad, fresh fruit. Would you ever combine different IDDSI levels for an order like level 6 meats with level 5?
Absolutely perfect question, because IDDSI does encourage this diet order individualization, because not everybody's created equal, and we're going to change over the course of time. And certainly that what you can do, those kinds of things, is combine a diet order. You might even just be at a level 7 easy to chew, which is the most liberal besides regular. And like you could do level 6 meats with that, so that they can have almost everything, and then level 6 meats. As far as individualizing the exceptions to a diet order, that because we know IDDSI level can't change. So if they're at a certain level and the diet order says level 6 soft and bite size, you need to serve all the food that way. However, if there's an exception for a person, it might say with soft bread allowed, with soft fruit allowed, with ice cream allowed, with mixed consistency allowed. As soon as an establishment decides on that language, they should try to keep it as consistent as they can, so they do not end up with 20 to 25 diet order exceptions. It will drive everybody crazy, and it will lead to inaccuracies, which is not what IDDSI is all about, nor anybody trying to do any quality initiative within a facility. You want it to be clear, have clear, agreed upon diet order exceptions that the whole team agrees with. The second thing to remember is if you start to make too many diet order exceptions for a person, and they can have a lot more than what's on traditionally on their main diet level, such as soft and bite size, it may imply that they actually possibly could be upgraded further. So if they really can tolerate sandwiches, you might want to rethink what level is best for them. And don't really, the clinicians are the ones who can do that. We mostly usually have our speech language pathologists working with our dietitians. It could be different in other settings.
Okay, perfect. Oh, and we have another question from Carol. What are some examples of how a person may be safely upgraded with IDDSI implementation?
I think this maybe is something that Alexa was kind of implying when she said, what she's seen is you have puree and you have regular. And how do you go from puree to a regular texture without making some obvious logical steps in between? And that's how somebody's going to be safely upgraded. Now, if you have IDDSI, you have options. You're learning how to make more than just a puree item. If you didn't have IDDSI, or what I've experienced prior to IDDSI, I experienced and I continue to experience frustration when I'm in a facility that doesn't really do it, because that person has very limited choices. They might be able to have a puree item, but they really, really could handle more. But the choices coming out of the kitchen is maybe some kind of an old-fashioned ground or mechanical soft, and people tended to focus just on the meat or the entree. That means every single thing else, vegetables, sides, desserts, bread items, are all exactly the same as the house. So how do we help somebody slowly be safely upgraded if we don't have IDDSI providing that structure and that best practice that's accepted by our professional organizations?
And we have, I think, our last question from Iris. Would order for half portion of level 6 and half portion of level 5 allowed recommended? Sometimes SLP might recommend half texture for the meal.
That sounds a bit confusing to me. Iris, I'm sure you are raising like a common question that's starting to come up with speech language pathologists trying to work through this, as well as dietitian and in the kitchen. I focus a lot more on the kitchen. That would be very confusing for me. It also would be confusing for me because if somebody can handle a level 6, why do they need a level 5? If you're talking fatigue, and you say, oh, they can handle a little bit, but not too much of it. If that's the half and half, Iris, I'm not sure. But I would be very scared about being able to qualify that and quantify that in a real life situation, 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, with unknown exact supervision and assistance during every single meal time. So that sounds it sounds like it's something maybe the speech language pathologist can do when they come in. And they do that a lot. They'll ask for some food that's way beyond the person's level to trial with them to see if they can upgrade. And that's been awful fun to see and do, and to see them survive and, whoa, let me try something else. And over the course of time, they get their strength up and they are able to be upgraded. So I hope that answers, Iris. If not, if we didn't quite answer that right, feel free to write in after or contact us, and we'll certainly give it a whirl again.
Thank you, everyone, for the great questions. That made a great conversation. Thank you so much. And thank you, Alexa and Mary, for joining us and for sharing your amazing knowledge. As promised, right now we're going to have Sarah drop our link to resources discussed today, plus more, into the chat. So be sure to check it out. We have IDDSI.org resources from Alexa at Rubicon, some Meal Suite resources, and more. So check it out. And thank you for joining. And we hope you have a great Friday.
Bye, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Bye. Bye.